the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss one of the most controversial strategies in the marketing world and its prevalence within the K-pop world, and that is the issue of outrage marketing. We are going to look at the definition of what exactly it is because it can be a confusing concept, some examples in the K-pop world, well, a lot of examples in the K-pop world, why labels might choose to use this strategy, and of course what issues this can ultimately lead to. So without further ado, let's start by discussing what we mean by the idea of outrage marketing. Outrage marketing is the idea of using certain promotional tactics with the purpose of intentionally sparking a powerful reaction from your audience, whether this be a positive or negative one. The reaction induced could be something such as anger or even upset. You might have also heard of outrage marketing being labeled with similar titles such as rage marketing, controversial marketing, and shock marketing. All of these marketing types are pretty similar in style and approach, with the idea of doing something more bold and perhaps unconventional to create more brand awareness than a regular method of marketing or promotion would. This is because people are more likely to tune into something or engage with something that has provoked a greater emotional reaction from them. We as the audience would feel more driven or motivated to involve ourselves in something marketed towards us in this way. While we're here, we'll also quickly brush over one of the methods you might have witnessed being used to support the outrage marketing approach, and that is the PR stunt. A PR stunt or publicity stunt is a planned event usually created in collaboration with marketers and or public relations specialists with the intention of attracting public attention or media coverage. One interesting and important thing to note is that although PR stunts are usually painted in negative lights, as they encourage dishonesty with the way in which they're set up but made to appear as though they aren't, these sorts of stunts are not necessarily always a bad thing or done with cruel intentions. A publicity stunt could be created in order to promote a new movie or a special fast food menu item. We could carry on looking at the definition of outrage marketing all day because it is definitely one of the more complex marketing techniques we've looked at on my channel so far, but I think it's probably one of those where hearing it put into context will definitely help us better get our heads around it. So I want us to look at some examples of times outrage marketing could have been used in K-pop. But before we do, I think it's so important that I mention how we as the viewer will never know for certain if something we have witnessed was done specifically with the intention of provoking outrage from us as the viewer. We can only ever assume based on the facts present to us. Therefore, these examples we will be looking at today I have decided to include because they did result in invoking some sort of shock or outrage from the viewer, so if they were done with that marketing idea in mind, then they would have been a success. But of course, like we say, we will never know for certain, so please bear that in mind when we go into these examples. And believe it or not, there are actually so many examples we could look at for outrage marketing in K-pop. There's probably some spinning around your head as we speak. I really mean it. So many. So we're going to be here for quite a while, so grab a drink, strap yourself in, and feel free to add any you think you've also seen in the comments. First example I wanted to start with is like a 4-in-1, survival shows and unexpected eliminations and additions. As I'm sure many of us are aware, the K-pop industry likes to use survival shows when creating upcoming new boy and girl groups, where many hopeful trainees compete for a place in the final group lineup. Along the way, lots of unexpected twists and turns may occur, but none are more shocking than a contestant who appeared to be a favourite or a frontrunner being told they will not make it the whole way. I don't think this idea is unique to K-pop in any way, but because the K-pop world has seen so many survival shows to create upcoming groups, it's only natural that we have seen this exact thing happen a few times too. JYP Entertainment has done this for their survival shows. Twice, who is now one of the most successful JYP groups, started life on the survival show 16, where 16 young trainees were pitted against one another for a place in the group. In the 6th episode of the series, a contestant named Momo was eliminated from the show due to low votes from the public. However, later down the line in the 10th episode of the show, Park Jin-young surprised both the contestants and the audience by announcing that Momo would not only be returning to the competition, but would also be in the final lineup of the group. While part of us wants to believe this is genuinely what happened and JYP simply saw potential in Momo and wanted to give her another chance, this decision led viewers to believe that the final lineup of the group was decided much sooner than we were led to believe. JYP wanted Momo to debut within the group as she was part of the original lineup the entire time, and her elimination was purely done with the intention of shocking the viewers. Another reason we struggle to see the innocence in this decision is because JYP Entertainment are repeat offenders and pulled a similar stunt when creating the boy group Stray Kids in their pre-debut survival show of the same name. In the 4th episode of their show, Minho, now known by his stage name Lino, was eliminated from the show despite his undisputable talents as a dancer because he mixed up some lyrics while performing. Later in the 8th episode, then trainee Felix was also eliminated after making a mistake during their dance, and apparently he was told his rapping did not stand out because he was still having difficulties with Korean, as he'd not long since left his home country of Australia. You've probably already guessed it, but in the following episode, Park Jin-young called the eliminated trainees Minho and Felix back and gave them a second chance to debut with the group. Audience are then allowed to cast their votes to decide if they want the group to be 7 or 9 members, aka with or without Minho and Felix. And of course the audience, who were absolutely outraged by their eliminations in the first place, wanted them back with the group so they could all debut together. The reason why it's so much harder for us to believe these eliminations and second chances were purely done to give young trainees an opportunity to debut and live their dreams is because these examples were around the basis of a TV show where it's so important to keep fans engaged, and the best way to do this is to tug at the heartstrings and get them voting, so we as the viewer feel responsible for their fate. Although both of these examples were from JYP, they're not the only label guilty of this. YG Entertainment recently debuted their girl group Babymonster after their reality TV show titled Last Evaluation, which followed 7 of YG's trainees going through a series of missions to decide the final lineup for Babymonster. Just as the girls were busy preparing for their final dance mission and were so close to the end, at the end of that episode, YG producer and founder Yang Hyun-suk revealed to the trainees that Babymonster would actually be a 5-member act, but he hadn't yet decided which of the 5 girls would debut. This of course caused absolute shock and outrage to the viewing audience, who thought the member lineup had already been decided as these 7 girls, and that's why we were watching their pre-debut journey as a group. But now we would be losing 2 of them. Needless to say, as we all know now, that Babymonster are a 7-member group, but they couldn't help but build up that suspense along the way, could they? 2 weeks passed until the video was uploaded online revealing the group's final lineup. The first half of the video featured Yang Hyun-suk naming that 5 members who would make it to Babymonster as promised earlier. But then he went on to say this final decision took 2 weeks because the vast majority of fans were demanding all 7 members debut in the group. And can you blame them? This is what everybody was expecting and led to believe all along, and now that wasn't going to happen, it obviously caused an outcry amongst fans. So the member announcements did not stop there, and after a change of heart, he went on to include the 2 trainees who were about to have their dreams crushed, and Rora and Asa were added to the group. I don't want to be all like, oh, I called it, because I know that's annoying, but I really did. And it's mainly because I have seen JYP pull this stunt multiple times before. I don't believe this reality series was ever advertised as a survival show, so it didn't really make sense to suddenly eliminate 2 of the trainees right before the end, if not just to cause some commotion and generate a bit of publicity, and that's precisely what this did and why they did it. One more reality or survival show example I have to include before we move on to the other examples I have, because these really are like the hubs of outrage marketing, and that is Monsta X's experience on No Mercy. Monsta X performed through an Mnet survival show titled No Mercy, where I believe it was 13 Starship Entertainment trainees were competing for a place in the 7-member boy group. However, quite late into the series and after multiple eliminations had already occurred, the show made the decision to randomly add another trainee to the show, who we now all know as Monsta X's youngest member, IM, because not only was he added to the survival show late on, but he actually made it into the final lineup. The decision to add IM to the show late on caused all kinds of outrage amongst so many different groups of people. The trainees still in the show, who we now know as the members of Monsta X, were annoyed that it felt unfair that somebody had got to be slotted into the show so late on after missing half of the challenges and after colleagues they wanted to work with had already been eliminated. And fans were also completely shocked because they might have already watched their favourite get sent home, only for somebody who appeared quite late on to get what felt like a pass straight into the group without doing half of the work. IM has since spoken out many times about how this was an extremely difficult time for him, and he felt like he was basically getting so much hate from all angles for something he did not have any control over. Unfortunately, the distress he and the rest of the group went through at that time was exactly what the companies involved would have wanted to happen, because it created such a buzz around the show and everybody involved. I wasn't watching the show at the time, but even I remember hearing about this on the K-pop news platforms and how outraged everybody was at this random last-minute addition to the group. Okay, we've spoken about so many examples of outrage marketing in survival shows, so let's now move on to some other marketing decisions that caused a lot of outrage in K-pop. I feel like whenever we hear the words outrage marketing, a lot of us may also think of another group who seems to get embroiled in mixed reactions from fans quite often, NewJeans. There's multiple things that have happened in the past that we could probably include here, because they are very heavily involved with artistic director and Adore CEO Min Hee-jin, and controversy follows her. But one example we have to discuss that shocked quite a few people is the whole ETA scandal. When NewJeans revealed the teasers for their comeback titled ETA, the teaser featured a car driving in the dark, and then towards the end, the following words appeared on screen. ETA NewJeans, July 21st, 2023, starring Eva, Mikkel, Maria. For those who don't know otherwise, this could appear totally random, however fans were quick to point out some things that looked suspicious. First of all, the name. ETA is not just an acronym for estimated time of arrival for the people of Spain. ETA was also the name of a Spanish group based off the Basque country, active up until as recently as 2018. This alone might not seem like it's enough of a coincidence to appear purpose, however it does go further than this. Many fans also believe that the names chosen to appear on screen were not at all a coincidence, but chosen deliberately, as these were names of some significance to the group. Mikkel was a leader of this group, Maria was his wife and a member of the group, and Eva was the daughter of their first victim. The date for the release of the comeback was also found to be linked to ETA, as they had previously conducted 2 attacks a year apart from one another on the date July 21st. This example is one where I think it is very important that we have to bring back the point of we don't know exactly why they chose to do this, especially when the actual comeback itself seemed to have nothing to do with any of these topics. However, we can only base our findings off the information presented to us, and there are too many factors at play here that did not feel at all like a coincidence, but more so an attempt from Adore, the label, and Min Hee-jin to shock the audience and get people talking, which is exactly what happened. If they did all of this and heavily included all of these references that would cause distress to the wider audience simply to build up media buzz around this group comeback, then that would be absolutely awful and in very poor taste. The next example of outrage marketing we're going to discuss is another one that has been done by NewJeans' team with their song Cookie. I'm sure you all know what I'm about to go over, right? But we're actually going to be looking at another group. Let's discuss songs with inappropriate lyrics being given to artists who are underage, with the song Macaroni Cheese by Young Posse. In October 2023, DSP Media debuted their new 5-member girl group Young Posse, with their debut track titled Macaroni Cheese. On a surface level, you could probably hear this song and think it is literally just about pasta, but when you actually read the lyrics, it is understandable why some people might have questioned if there is perhaps a double meaning that the label were trying to sneak in there. Lines like, drop it on my body, the goal is in my mouth, I just want it hot but don't make my body hot. Fans have been unable to ignore the double meanings that could potentially be there, because this does happen a lot in music, where things like food are used as metaphors and innuendos, but things that are a lot more not safe for work. So this got a lot of people debating what the true intentions behind these lyrics were. I won't explain what these innuendos could be, I'm sure we could all work it out from the lyrics I just gave, and to even consider this is what the label were intending to do entirely grosses me out. It could be completely innocent, and honestly I hope it is, especially because the members of this group range from as old as 20 to as young as 14, and that is just at the moment. I believe the youngest member might have been 13 when they debuted. But this is the thing about outrage marketing. We don't need to know their true intentions, and we probably never will, because what's important to them is that they get people talking, especially in this instance where they're trying to create a media buzz around a new group and a new song, and that is exactly what happened. Okay, so in our next example of outrage marketing in K-pop, aka things done purposely to gain an extreme reaction from the audience, is the case of Triple S AAA and their disbandment. Triple S AAA, Acid Angel from Asia, is the first subunit created from the group Triple S, who many of us may know from their label's aim to make them the world's first decentralized K-pop K-pop idol group, meaning that their members will rotate between the group, subunits, and solo activities as chosen by fans. Fans were told that if the subunit did not sell a minimum of 100,000 copies of their album, then they would disband. This caused both shock and I would say even fear amongst fans, because I feel like whenever we hear the word disband in K-pop, we always assume the worst because it never means good things. And this may be one of the first times where a label has straight up told fans in advance that the future of this group lies in our hands. Even though we already know that, we don't often hear it. This of course would provoke a strong reaction from fans who would go into panic mode, doing everything they could to save the girls. However, in the end it would ultimately not be enough, and in November 2022, it was reported that the subunit had disbanded due to not reaching the sales goal of having 100k albums sold. However, their label Mod House's CEO Jaden Jung did later release a statement to clarify that the unit did not disband, but just won't be releasing any new albums, explaining that disbanding does not have the same meaning we're used to in K-pop within the Triple S system, and that fans will still be able to see the unit again in the future. Don't you just find it interesting that he or the label never said this before the group had disbanded? Because if they had, fans wouldn't have panicked and bought as many albums as they could, knowing that the group would be fine anyway. Instead, the label went for the rage marketing approach to evoke a reaction from the audience, when really there wasn't much to worry about. Telling fans that the subunit wouldn't disband earlier would have created nowhere near as much buzz as the threat of nearly losing them did. We're getting there, I promise guys, just 2 more examples to look at. And the next example I can't not include because this is outrage marketing to a T, and a marketer's worst nightmare to be honest, but it is something I have spoken about so many times on my channel, and you may be getting sick of hearing me go over this, so be sure to check out the chapters down below if you want to skip past this example. If not, stick with me and I'll take a deep breath before I go into this topic yet again. Hate Rodrigo. I'm sure every man and his dog knows what this is by now, but if not, quick summary. In June 2023, soloist Yena came back with the song Hate Rodrigo featuring Yugi of G-Idol, with Rodrigo seemingly referring to popular American singer-songwriter Olivia Rodrigo. And these assumptions were all correct, because the teasers and music video both heavily included Olivia's literal image and reference to her music and music videos. Fans were both shocked and confused to see this sort of concept, and a lot of people thought it was a very bad idea, because it made Yena appear bitter and jealous of Olivia. This of course left a lot of viewers questioning why on earth a K-pop artist would release a song targeting a Western artist in this way. Following the mixed reactions, Yena did speak out to address some of the public's mixed opinions with what exactly they were aiming to go for with this comeback. Yena explained that she loves Olivia Rodrigo and is a fan of her, but admittedly was jealous of how much she shines. So this song was trying to say she hates her to express the feeling of jealousy, but not that she dislikes her. This ordinarily would have been enough to eliminate accusations of outrage marketing, but unfortunately, because of how bad Yena's story was portrayed with this song, there was no escaping the backlash. Even though Yena did her very best to clear up some of the confusion, fans found it very hard to see this song in the way she was describing, because even if this was the case, there are so many much simpler ways they could have gone about it that didn't make it look like Yena was saying she didn't like Olivia, or featuring her image in so many references that ultimately had to be edited out of the video anyway. The label succeeded in causing enough outrage to get everybody talking about the song, but it led to viewers who could only see this as a desperate attempt from the label to shock the audience by taking advantage of Olivia's popularity in the media. And last but not least, one more example of outrage marketing I wanted to include might just be the most bizarre one we've discussed. I left the craziest till last. We're going to be talking about SixBomb's Getting Pretty comeback. In 2017, girl group SixBomb did what no K-pop group has ever done before, with a comeback concept that focused on the before and after process of them getting 100 million won's worth of plastic surgery, which is over $70,000. The group first released a song titled Getting Pretty before, aka before they had all their cosmetic procedures done. The group then released a second music video titled Becoming Pretty after they had received all of their cosmetic procedures, where they were shown like dancing in an operating theatre and singing lyrics such as "Everyone follow me, I know I'm pretty." The group's manager Kim Il-woong stated that the 4 members had gotten almost every kind of surgery that could be done on a face, as well as breast implants. I don't even know how to begin explaining how crazy this one one is. Like, to me as a viewer, this just blows my mind. And of course, a group so openly basing a whole comeback around how much plastic surgery they received generated a lot of shock from the audience. Aside from just shock that a group would even base a comeback around this sort of idea, something that is so taboo to talk about in K-pop even though we know it's happening, there's also a fear from some fans that the girls were forced to make such drastic changes to their appearance just for the sake of releasing a song. However, the group's leader Daein told the AFP news agency that they all wanted to get some surgeries done to get prettier and thought, why not perform a song about it instead of trying to conceal it? People will notice anyway, so we wanted to be open about this reality where women want to look pretty. If what Daein is saying is true, of course we will never know, that does make sense and provides a clever response, or dare I say excuse, as to why they decided to be so open about their surgeries if people were to ask, because people will notice anyway, which yes is true, but we don't know how much control they had over this comeback at all. And really, we all know there is likely another reason the label wanted to advertise so openly that they were doing this, and this definitely came into consideration when making this comeback concept. They knew it would cause a bit of a stir in the media. They wanted to use the girls as transformation stories which were going to happen anyway, to instead encourage viewers to check out the before and after music videos, to see their visual changes and talk about their thoughts on them. It generated interest and intrigue around the songs, but might not have been there otherwise, especially with that album art too, which just like, oh, it's crazy whenever I see it. I'm like, creeps me out. We made it, guys. I'm done with all the examples. So now let's discuss why companies will use outrage marketing in K-pop. What is the purpose? The reason why outrage marketing is used in K-pop is no different than in like the general world, really. It comes down to the science of feelings and reactions in correlation with branding. We've spoken briefly already about the idea of outrage marketing being used to create brand awareness. But an important part of brand awareness is making sure your brand is memorable, or else people are going to move on and forget about you quickly. This is especially important in fast-moving environments such as the K-pop world, where trying to create a brand for a K-pop group is very difficult when the life cycle of K-pop groups can be very brief, before fans move on to the next new group that debuted. So how does outrage marketing come into play here? Recent neuroscience research has shown that strong emotions can have significant impact on memory retention. Specifically, when an experience elicits an emotional response, it can activate the release of neurotransmitters, which can strengthen the connection between the neurons involved in the encoding and storage of memories. This can lead to a more vivid and long-lasting memory, which can be more easily retrieved and recalled later on. In normal non-science terms, this basically means that companies are aware that one of the most effective ways to ensure you remember who a group are is to embroil them in some sort of controversy that will get a reaction from you as a viewer. This has the double benefit of not only does it give them some sort of prominence in the press, but it will also give you something to associate them with as a viewer. There is another question here as well though. If labels must do something to generate a reaction, why does it often seem to be something problematic or an odd controversy that might make people feel negatively or badly? Well, studies have also found that certain emotions are easier to provoke than others, getting labels to their desired outcome much faster. For example, negative emotions such as fear and anger tend to be more powerful, and this therefore makes them easier to evoke, because once we do feel triggered to feel one of these feelings, we feel it very strongly and are more likely to react to these triggers than we are to something that simply makes us feel kind of happy or joyous. Does that make sense? You may also be wondering, how are labels able to get away with outrage marketing when such a major part of it involves the audience feeling negatively, simply just to generate interest around an artist or something happening? Well, it's actually quite simple, really. Outrage marketing is known as quite a short-term marketing strategy, meaning that it is never used with the intentions of eliciting any sort of reaction on a long-term basis. It is used to shock the audience, and shock is usually only a reaction to something more sudden or unexpected. With this in mind, once something used for outrage marketing has initially shocked its audience, its work here is done. Once we have been shocked, we as the viewers are likely to move on to the next news story after our reaction, because this is what happens in K-pop. There is always the next thing happening, the next group debuting, or the next shocking news story that sometimes might actually be something going on and nothing to do with marketing. Therefore, when a company does decide to use the outrage marketing strategy, it can be forgotten about as quickly as it comes comes to light. Even when a controversy has been suspected of being a method of rage or shock marketing, it is never really held against the label for long, and this is why this kind of marketing will always carry on working. Fans will be initially outraged by whatever they have been forced to react to and will react however they see fitting, but nothing ever really seems to get done about the initial outcry in the long run. So what is the main issue with outrage marketing? If it's such a short-term marketing strategy, why can't we just ignore these attempts at getting a reaction out of us until the labels stop doing them? Well, this kind of takes us back to the issue we discussed earlier, which is the idea that we will never really know when something has been done with the intention of getting a reaction out of us, or when something is a genuine problem we need to be outraged by. In the example of SSS AAA, where fans were told the group were going to disband, how were fans supposed to know that they weren't going to disband? Because the SSS system doesn't work in the same way as a normal K-pop group. Labels purposely do shady things or perhaps miss out information to get a reaction out of viewers, and then backtrack further down the line once the required reaction has been achieved and the anger starts rolling in, to ensure that people don't stay mad for too long and move on to the next controversy this week. Therefore, we as an audience will never know where we're coming or going with news stories. We'll never be able to properly gauge when we should be giving an emotional response to something, and we'll end up having a sort of knee-jerk reaction to anything that triggers us to feel a certain kind of way. Because of this, fans will have no choice but to react to any and every attempt at outrage marketing, and it is likely we will do this subconsciously without even meaning to. Your brain will force you to have an exaggerated emotional response before you have even managed to clock if something sounds far-fetched or not, or done on purpose to get a reaction out of you. I'm here right now trying to explain the idea of outrage marketing to the world, but I won't lie and say I've never fallen for it myself. Of course I have. I think we all might have at least once. It is only natural when you see something that sounds like it will negatively impact somebody or something you care about. There is another party who unfortunately are negatively affected by outrage marketing: the K-pop idols involved. The biggest issue with outrage marketing is that it can be seen as extremely morally questionable, because you are basically purposely going out of your way to make somebody feel an extreme way about something. Whether the public reaction you're aiming for is to be positive or negative, there is a level of dishonesty or sneaky tactics at play to make an outrage marketing campaign happen. Although they are not in control of their own marketing, this can often make K-pop idols involved in these controversies, created by rage marketing, look a certain kind of way to an audience. And it's a way they often don't really want to be seen in. Does any young artist who just wants to make music want to be seen as the artist who always wears something inappropriate, or singing a song with notes they can't hit vocally? No, but their label know these sorts of things will make fans feel a certain kind of way and react to them. And through doing this attempt to make fans feel a certain kind of way, what labels don't realize they are doing is that they're also making their artists feel a certain kind of way. Idols may end up feeling like some sort of toy or pawn in a bigger game at their expense. Also, their label can make a bit of extra money or make their fans feel bad for not supporting them enough. Okay, let's wrap this video up with a quick conclusion and my thoughts on outrage marketing as a marketing strategy. I think it can greatly depend on the brand image you are trying to create and how far you are willing to stray away from your morals in order to do this. There are no laws against outrage marketing because it's not really a crime, but for me personally and as a marketer myself, I would choose to avoid any methods and tactics that require outrage marketing. The risk does not outweigh the reward for me, and that risk that the controversy you are trying to create completely backfires and ruins your brand's image or alienates audiences is too much of a danger for me. It's a risk that I don't think needs to be taken, and this is my own personal opinion here, so please don't yell at me for this, but I'm not too sure that Yena has been able to fully repair the damage that Hate Rodrigo caused to her image. Even though, sure, people moved on to the next issue in the press and aren't really talking about it anymore unless you come to K-pop YouTube, we're talking about it all the time, she now has to live with this controversy created at her expense. Outrage marketing is around us all the time. K-pop YouTubers are very guilty of outrage marketing when they title a video K-pop artists that fell off and put the biggest groups in the thumbnail, calling them flops and untalented, because it drums up the attention and views they want, even if it's bad press. It all comes back to this idea of bad publicity is still publicity, which I hate and completely disagree with. And for me, I think there are easier and better ways to build up public interest that marketers have a responsibility to come up with. Rather than these cheap attempts at shocking audiences, it's kind of our jobs. And I can assure you there are absolutely ways to market effectively that are also morally and ethically much less questionable. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. I know it's a longer one, but this topic absolutely needed it, and there were so many examples I couldn't not include. I really hope I did this topic justice and it wasn't too boring. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload. And if you enjoy these sorts of marketing videos, please check out my channel where I've got some more in my playlists, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!